The Rhythm Section is a film based off of a novel with the same name, and it's actually written by the screenwriter of this film, originally written by the screenwriter, that stars Blake Lively, where she plays a young woman who is at a low point in her life, simply after her family is killed in a plane crash over the Atlantic Ocean. But when she discovers that the plane crash was really a cover-up for a terrorist act, she embarks on a mission to hunt down those involved in the plot and kill them. I'll admit, I wasn't really looking forward to this movie, or at least following it too much prior to tonight. I mean, the trailer made it look like it could be something interesting, but the main things that kept me from being truly excited, or at least interested, was just the choice to set the trailer to that Bad Girl song that I didn't really care for, and it somewhat reminded me of the Edge of Tomorrow and Gemini Man trailers. I don't know. Sometimes if you cut a trailer to music, it can work, but those two that I mentioned earlier didn't work, and I didn't think the one for this movie worked at all. And probably the main thing that kept me from being interested was the fact that it was releasing in January. You know, the dumping ground for movies. And normally you can guarantee that a film will either be bad or at least not good enough to be memorable if it's or if it's released in January. But hey, we'll see how I feel after I see the movie. Now, before I get into my thoughts, or at least before I go to see the movie, I'm going to go ahead and throw out my normal disclaimer for the uninitiated, and this is for when I get back from the movie. So the way that I convey my thoughts on a film is I go through a pro and con list. It helps me to best catalog the good and the bad, in my opinion, and while I try to keep the sections separate, if I can make a pro and con work off of each other, or if they're intrinsically tied together, then I will definitely take advantage of that. Now, there's your disclaimer, and I will see you guys again when I get back from seeing the Rhythm Section.
I need your help to find the ones who did this. I've got nothing to lose.
What about your life?
What about it? Offer you closure.
And how would you do that?
Violently.
You're much more human than I thought you'd be.
And it's a good disguise.
You don't have a clue about the scale of the mess you've caused.
The synopsis that I gave earlier is based off of the info that I had gotten from the trailer, as well as just the quick synopsis off of Wikipedia. But that's just the bare bones description of the plot. The full idea of the plot is something that I would definitely think is hard to market. But the main focus of the majority of the film is not on Blake Lively's character actually hunting down all of these people who were involved in the terrorist attack, but rather, instead, the majority is just her searching for people who can help her in her quest, whether it's in training her to be better at, you know, what she thinks she needs to be, like fighting and such like that with Jude Law's character, or just simply to give her information to aid her on her mission. And the plot is told and edited in somewhat of a unconventional way. And that can be interesting for some films, but it's not a good thing for Rhythm Section. What we get here is a minor action film with very little focus, and just a film that seems to think that every single scene is important when it doesn't do anything in the editing or the cinematography to really prove that it's interesting, especially in the conversation scenes. And to make it just a bit more tedious of a watch, the film is less than 2 hours long. It's a bit over like 90, maybe 100 minutes, which is usually it's usually either the sweet spot for runtimes, or, you know, you leave wishing that maybe there was more to the movie. And I was bored throughout much of the film, and I found myself just wanting to just lay down and go to sleep, and I wasn't even tired. I had went to the gym like not even an hour before I saw this movie, and what is it? I'm one of those people where if I go to the gym, I'll be up for about maybe 5 hours afterwards, even if I don't want to be, or maybe I should go to sleep, but I don't know. I just, even though I was in that span of time where I should be awake, after the movie, I immediately came home and fell asleep. That's why I'm actually in different clothes than I was earlier in the video. But one thing that did keep me from deciding to just go into that gentle goodnight until the theater lights came back on was just the choices in the music and how the music was edited into the film. They would begin playing a loud pop, rock, or just punk rock song at random intervals, but mostly it was like at the end of a scene. And then when something happens, usually after it shows our main character walking away or towards something, the music would just stop. Songs would last 10, maybe 15 seconds and just cut, and it would be enough to confuse me and keep me awake. And the music choices were definitely misplaced. The choices seem to have been there to make you feel like you're seeing something cool by inserting upbeat and sometimes funky tracks, but it doesn't track with the somberness that is going on in the entirety of the film. And speaking of the main character, while Lively gives at least a commendable emotional performance in the film, she is brought down by the character itself. Like the film, she herself is extremely somber, and her entire character can be described just as the word revenge, and there are some movies that have characters that only have the idea of revenge as part of their character, but the idea of that is just, you know, all that are used in character development, which is fine. If it's used for character development and just seeing how it's affecting them emotionally or mentally, that can actually work. But this character just wants revenge, so she trains hard and keeps pushing herself to be better, as to be expected, which could actually lead to character development, or at least character analysis. But whenever it comes to actually taking action outside of the training that she's given, and she tries to become the person that she wants to be, or at least that she believes that she should be, most of the time, you know, she wastes her potential and the training. Most of the time, she just runs away, and even whenever she does commit, it feels too uncharacteristic. And not only that, she is so tortured by, you know, innocent people that she knew who died, and yet she causes so many deaths of many innocent lives during her mission, quest, whatever the hell you want to call it, and that doesn't seem to bother her at all. I think that would have been something good to include in this movie. At least it would have given us an insight into how everything done in the plot is affecting her emotionally or mentally, but there's no character development tying those moments of cowardice and wanton destruction, you know, to make them feel cohesive. It feels kind of like, a story beat that was needed to be met, but they didn't have enough time to connect A to B. It's kind of like the whole Game of Thrones thing with Daenerys. We knew that she was most likely going to snap in the end, but the creators didn't take the time to actually make it a cohesive and maybe even slow decline. Instead, she's good one moment, then we cut to the next season, and then she's immediately pissed that maybe people don't care about her as much as Jon, and then suddenly she's burning a city down, you know, for I don't know, just I wasn't expecting to talk about Game of Thrones in this episode, but there you go. But with Lively's character, there are choices that she makes that just made me check out as far as how much I would care about her character. Aside from Lively's performance, I honestly enjoyed Jude Law as this asshole ex-secret agent type that trains Lively. Whenever he was on screen, I was at least intrigued, and he was one of the reasons for me loving a particular scene in the film. There are two action sequences that I enjoyed to an extent in this movie. The first one was my favorite, and this one was between Law and Lively. Lively's complaining that Law hasn't taught her how to fight, and at first he just gives basic tips in his uptight asshole way, and then out of nowhere, just to see how Lively reacts, and at this point, it's being shot to where we don't see that he's thinking about it. We don't see his face until after the action starts, but he just violently begins to wrestle with her, and then it turns into a one-shot fight sequence that was legitimately fun to watch from beginning to end. And the other one that I wasn't as big on, but I still got enjoyment out of, was a car chase that was shot from in a single shot from inside the vehicle that our main character is in. And while I didn't care how shaky cam it was, at least it wasn't boring. At least both of these scenes were not boring compared to the rest of the film. So in the end, as far as January Fair goes, this isn't the worst movie you can see, but that isn't really high praise. The film is relentlessly dull, and there are so many issues with the editing and the direction and just the overall narrative. I don't personally recommend this movie. I mean, if I had to, I'd say wait until it comes out on, say, Netflix or something like that, whatever it ends up being on, and just try it then. But even with only $6 a ticket at the particular theater that I've been going to, I still think that I didn't get my money's worth, even with the 2 scenes that I enjoyed. And honestly, it's especially because of those 2 scenes why I don't think that I got my money's worth. But that's all for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed just hearing my thoughts on the movie. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, farewell until the next video, all of you casual moviegoers and movie fans alike, and keep on being awesome.